Welcome to Spectrum Perspectives, real talk with parents, professionals, and autism advocates. With your host, Cindy Gellermini.
Hi, everyone. This is Cindy with another episode of Spectrum Perspectives. And today I have Sara Intonato with me. Hi, Sara. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Cindy. Thank you so much for having me.
Did I say that right? Did I
Yes.
pronounce that right?
Yes.
Okay. So every interview, we always start in the beginning. Let's go back to pregnancy, birth, delivery. How did that go? Were any red flags? Any kind of issues?
No, I had a normal pregnancy. I gave birth at home with no drugs, 40 weeks. Rocco was a healthy weight, 7 pounds, 2 ounces. I breastfed exclusively. I made my own baby food with organic produce from my local farms. I did all that stuff. I thought I was doing a really good job actually taking a more holistic route, which I'd been on my own for the last, 10 years prior to having children or so. My own healing journey, eating a clean diet, yoga teacher, etc. And I thought I was doing the right thing by taking a slow and moderate approach to our well visits. I said no to flu shots and all that stuff, but I said yes to slowly giving immunizations over time, waiving many of them. I had a great pediatrician at the time who was really open-minded. So I thought I was doing the right thing, giving my kid a slow, easy start into the world. And Rocco was showing signs of speech delay around 15 months. And then he was diagnosed just at 2 years old with full autism spectrum disorder. But prior to that, if I look back in hindsight, I have pictures of my perfect baby smiling at the camera, making eye contact with us, probably until about the 15-month mark. We started to really notice some things. We started to wonder if he was hearing us. So I got his hearing tested again because it had been fine when he was initially tested, but I just didn't know. He was my first baby. So I had nothing to compare it to.
Right. How about his development, the crawling and walking? Was that all on time?
Crawling was around 10 and a half, 11 months. Not super early, but not super late either. And I want to say he crawled at 10 and a half or 11 months. And then a month later, he was walking by his first birthday.
Okay.
So gross motor was really strong from the start. But in hindsight, of course, now that I know, the crawling being something that happened a touch later and then sort of a rushed phase of development compared to some other phases should have given me a little heads up because, of course, crawling works with the different hemispheres of the brain. And now it's looked at as sort of a marker to be cautious about if your child skips crawling altogether or doesn't crawl for very long. But Rocco was a curious boy. He loved to play. He loved to connect with people. He didn't show any major delays until all my friends' kids were spewing out a new word every week or faster. And he had a few, but more weren't really coming. And then around, I want to say the 18-month to 2 year mark, some of the words that he'd had went away. And so that was the biggest indicator that something was going on. But from months 0 until 12, 15, no issues at
Right.
all.
So you would consider that a regression?
I would.
Started losing the words?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Losing the words and losing eye contact,
Right.
losing auditory processing. That was something I really noticed because my auditory processing is very strong. Coming from a background in dance and competitive sports, you had to have very strong auditory processing. So I would notice in him that, friends who had boys the same age, if they said, hey, take this and throw it in the garbage 4 feet away, they would.
Mhm.
And if I tried to do that with him, he wouldn't. And I didn't know if it was that he didn't understand what I was saying, or he didn't know how, or he was just heavily distracted, or what. But I could see that something was up around that age.
Right. For me, I had two girls first, my twins.
Okay.
Then I had Robbie, and he would kind of do the same. It was like he didn't hear me. And I
Yeah.
thought, wow, boys are really stubborn, aren't they? They just don't, they don't listen like girls do, right?
Yeah.
And I remember once we got out of the car and the girls went in the house and he started heading to the backyard, and called him like multiple times and he just didn't come. And then I sang the Winnie the Pooh song, and all of a sudden he stopped and turned and he came running in the house. I was like, all right,
Mm,
well, okay, so I know he could hear me,
that's right.
right? But I'm like, this is selective hearing. He's like my husband. But
Right. Totally. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I
yeah,
think I too had those moments where I knew he heard me.
yeah,
Because if I were saying, "Hey, Rocco, do you want to, watch a show or something really enticing? Do you want to have a cookie?" He would bolt from wherever he was and
right.
make his way to the kitchen. But if it were something less exciting, like throw this in the trash,
Mhm.
open the door, then it was like he didn't hear me. And it was, now
Right.
that I know what I know, being a level 2 RPM provider, it was
Right.
selective auditory processing.
So that's like selective hearing.
Well, and selective auditory processing from the way of alternative sensory development. Like some people we know are sensory seekers. They'll seek out more stimulus in a certain channel, like tactile or, auditory. But other people will only gravitate to things that they prefer, that make them feel safe, that are predictable, like the same song over and over, for example.
Mhm.
So it is selective is actually the term. So people use the term selective hearing as like, a joke, like we just were, like husbands have selective
Yeah.
hearing. But it is a thing. That's why sometimes a student in the spelling world will respond so well to mom's voice, but not a provider's, or vice
Mm.
versa, or one TV show, but not another.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, my son, he used to watch Disney obsessively, which is why he liked the Winnie the Pooh song, all the way until he was 27 years old. But I have to wonder now, knowing what I know, just interviewing somebody the other day, we were talking about them getting in their loops,
Yes,
and always saying Barney, Barney, Barney. And they kept giving him the Barney videos. And when he learned how to spell, he's like, I can't stand Barney. Stop giving me the Barney videos.
that's right. Yeah, it's so fascinating to see that. And Soma Mukhopadhyay, the founder of RPM, Rapid Prompting Method,
Yeah.
explains this really beautifully in her first book, Understanding Autism Through RPM. It's her red book.
Mhm.
And she so beautifully explains that you have to understand as a parent or a provider that when someone is seeking predictability, they might go to the familiar thing, the Winnie the Pooh video, over and over, even when they're 27. That does not indicate they can't understand more complex concepts.
Right.
They're just seeking out the familiarity. And so I love that your son said to you, I can't stand Winnie the Pooh. But at the same time, this is exactly how certain types of stims work. They can be calming, like chewing a piece of gum. For me, that does not interfere with me doing work. But an excitatory stim, like getting into a loop and playing the same song, and you can see someone's facial expressions changing and their body movements escalating, that is exactly like an addictive pattern. I don't like this, but I'm doing it anyway because sometimes it gives me gratification, but sometimes it's not really predictable. And so I'm going to keep doing it, but I don't really feel good about myself when I keep doing it. And there you have it. That is exactly how an excitatory stim works. So it's been really interesting for parents who I know, as their teens and adults become open spellers, because they're able to articulate, Mom, I know I'm saying this word or this line from this movie over and over, and I can't stop. And it's driving me crazy, but I
Mhm.
can't control it. So
Right.
it's really, really interesting to start looking at non-speakers or scripted, limited speakers through this lens, I think.
Right. Yeah. I just interviewed Katie Asher for the second time the other day, and she was talking about the whole science behind all of that, which I cannot explain. I'm not even going to attempt to explain it. Just go back and watch that
Yeah.
video. Um, but let's get back to your son. So, all right, so you got the autism diagnosis. What did he? So he regressed. Did he lose all his speech, or he just some of it?
A lot of it. He was diagnosed with apraxia a few years later, around 5 years old.
Oh,
So,
really?
yes. So the
A lot
motor,
of people don't get the apraxia diagnosis.
a lot of people don't bother, and I understand why. Unless it's going to give you something, what's the point? but we were looking at different things to help him. And there were different types of speech therapy, as you know. Articulation for him would not have done much at all, but a really highly trained prompt speech therapist has helped him tremendously. And even at 14, he was able to answer questions on a neuropsych for the first time ever in his life. And so I'm not against SLPs. I think speech works, but it has to be the right kind. And us getting the apraxia diagnosis helped us to get on his IEP. He needs this specific kind of speech, not just whatever speech you have available in the building.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And then, so what made you pursue the autism diagnosis? Like, what were the signs that you were seeing?
There was definitely the question of him hearing me selectively. He just seemed like he had a hard time settling in his body. Now I use the term regulation or dysregulation, but he slept well, which was amazing for a while. We had sleep regressions later. He napped when he was a baby and a toddler, but during the day when he was awake, the way I would describe it to people is he couldn't organize himself. He would be all over the place and sensory seeking very intensely, like touching things, putting them in his mouth, wanting to play with water, you name it. He was the kid who, when he was big enough to climb into the bathtub, I would find him in the bathtub taking a bath with his pajamas on, because he loved the water and he just wanted to play with it.
Yeah.
So
How old is he now? How old is he?
15.
He's 15. Okay.
Yeah. So
you knew about autism back then.
I did, and I didn't. This was my firstborn. I think the sun rises and sets with your firstborn. It was a real shock to my system when he was diagnosed. And I really honestly felt like I was a terrible mom for him not talking. Like it must have been something I did wrong. It must be my fault. And I really struggled in the beginning, laying awake at night. Like, why is it that moms who feed their kids McDonald's 3 times a day and stick them in front of a TV and, shot up heroin during their pregnancy have kids who are fine? And my kid, in my mind at that time, was not fine. And he certainly had his share of biomedical struggles alongside the autism diagnosis. He had a lot of skin eruptions like eczema. That went away with diet change very quickly, thankfully. He had gut issues. We dealt with tick-borne bacteria, parasites, you name it. He would always have something on fire that would be shown to us through behavior, like if his sleep was disrupted or his appetite was disrupted. And so that was always how I figured him out, was letting his body talk for him, basically, and his behavior did the same. And so I got into the functional medicine world with him pretty early on. He was probably 2.5 when I started making dietary changes and doing some labs and seeing, what does his body need to feel better? Because it was clear to me that when he felt good in his body, he was a joy to be around and he loved learning. And when he didn't feel well, everything was hard. Sleeping was hard, eating was hard, you name it. But that was, to me, something I knew how to do. I'd been on a wellness journey for 10 years by that point, and I felt so powerless in so many ways to help him. And I thought, well, I'm cooking every day anyway. I might as well help him through what we're eating. I might as well help him through taking supplements that his body is showing they need through lab work. We were not winging it. And I always like to tell parents, don't wing it when it comes to things like that, because then you'll have no confidence. And if you have no confidence, it's hard to see things through during challenging moments. You have to feel really anchored in what you're doing. So I really just poured myself into those types of approaches because it was what I knew. And I really just wanted to help him in whatever way I could.
Yeah, I'm concerned with now that everything came out about the leucovorin, and all these parents are jumping on that train, and they're all, they're asking on Facebook, how much should I give? What kind of dosage? Where can I get it? And I'm like, what are you doing?
I have people in my DMs asking me that. And I'm like, you need to understand, I did frat testing with my child 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And he's been on it for that long because his body has shown he needs it and it helps him. I'm not going to give you the information about what we took to heal him from parasites. I'm not going to give you the information about how much leucovorin he took when he was 5 years old. First of all, I don't even remember. Second of all, no, because what's right for him may be harmful to your child. You
Right.
as a parent have to do the really inconvenient work of digging into your kid's biome so that you can make good choices for them.
Right. Yeah. They need to see a biomedical doctor. They do.
100%.
They do. And I've just been telling people, go to a med maps doctor. That's it. That's where you need to go. Period.
That's
Don't,
great
stop,
advice.
stop trying to do this yourself.
Great advice. We see a MAPS doctor
Hmm.
and we have for years. And it's truly remarkable how much you can do. And I like parents to know that as well, because you can feel powerless if you have no experience with autism. I didn't. And it can feel really challenging to lay awake at night thinking like, I want to help my own child and I don't know how. And love is not enough. And what can I possibly do? So, working with a functional medicine doctor, a MedMaps doctor, can be an investment of your time, energy, money, other resources. And for us, it's been completely worth it. I have a different kid now because we've stayed the course during those hard moments. And I always stand on the bandwagon of if you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
Hmm.
And it doesn't matter how much you have in the bank. It doesn't matter how many vacations you took if you are not well. So for us, I probably could buy another home for the amount of money that we've invested in Rocco's biome over the years, and I would do it 10 times over without batting an eyelash.
Hmm. Hmm. So who diagnosed him eventually?
He was diagnosed during a neuropsych evaluation
Okay.
through early intervention um, at 2.
Early
So
intervention through your Board of Ed?
through our county.
Okay.
Yeah, through our county. And so in New York, where I live,
Mhm.
they did things through the county for the younger group, the early intervention group. And then when they get to preschool, then they move into the district group.
Okay.
And they often stay there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then, what did they recommend as far as school goes?
Well, when he was 2, he had all home services and it was like a full-time gig. They sent ABA, speech, OT,
Yep.
PT, the whole thing. Um, and then when he was preschool going into elementary school, it was a smaller classroom, like an 811 type of class, and ABA, because that's what districts recommend. And, me being the young mom, I didn't know any better. So I just went with those options. And I will say, I always am very thankful that for the most part, I met really great people in the ABA world who really cared and wanted to make a difference. So I never said yes to the school environments that felt robotic to me, were really cold and clinical, that just did not feel right. So I always would trust that I would find the right people, and I did, always. And I always say those types of environments worked for Rocco until they didn't. They worked for him like preschool, kindergarten. Um, he never had intense behaviors that were self-injurious or aggressive when he was young, but he started to when he was probably second or third grade. And I swear it was intense frustration. He was still in an ABA environment at that time. He would get off the school bus every day and cry.
Hmm.
Now he gets off the school bus every day and does a happy dance walking into school or walking home with pep in his step, so proud of himself. He goes to typical high school now, school of 1,000 kids. He's the only non-speaker in the high school
Hmm.
and definitely the only speller. But when he was little, that was a huge red flag for me. I had a really happy kid. And when he was coming home crying every day, I was like, this is not okay. And thankfully, I had a woman on our team who specialized in relationship development intervention, RDI. The secret to having her was that she used to do ABA back in the day. So she was able to do all her billing through the county and whatnot under ABA services, but she didn't do ABA. She taught me how to have a relationship with my own child. And we still work with her. She's been with us since he was 2. So she really helped me to expand my mind and what was possible for him. She really encouraged me to pressure school in ways of socializing and stimulating him. And she truly, truly encouraged me to listen to my gut. She's like, if something isn't right with your kid, and you are the change maker for him. And I didn't feel super confident in that in the beginning. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying to keep my head above water, but I do feel that way now. And I'm grateful that I had her in my ear all that time.
What do you think was wrong? Why do you think he was crying?
I think he was bored to death. I think he had a fully developed mind in there. And, how many times can you be asked to point to the cup over and over and over again when you're doing ABA? Like I've met amazing BCBAs who have restored my faith in ABA. And I've met people who treat my kid like a robot with no brain. And so I think that when you're in very large environments, like schools with hundreds of people who work that way, who don't presume competence, it can feel like you're trapped in there as a young boy who.
So this was a school for autistic kids?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a school for autistic kids. And it didn't take me long to start looking for other placements.
I only know because you said it's a school with hundreds of people all doing the same thing. So now I know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they had different types of classrooms, for kids who had verbal ability, but it showed up in other ways.
Right.
They had classrooms for kids who were really struggling with behaviors. So I don't think the people in these environments are bad people, but they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And we still see this. Like I go to meetings for the high school and I'm talking about Rocco with his letterboard. I'm showing them 15-minute videos of him learning about Queen Elizabeth I with me with perfect accuracy and flow from an angle that they can see him on the board the whole time. And I'm still told, well, this isn't evidence-based, so we don't know if we can do this here. But thankfully, that's changing really fast in New York. We've got the Communication Bill of Rights for people with disabilities now. So it's not very long, I think, until the whole country has.
Well, it's in the assembly, right? It's not in the Senate yet, but yeah.
It's passed in the assembly unanimously.
Correct. But it still has to go to Senate, though.
Which goes in January of 26.
Okay, good.
So not long, not far off.
Yeah. I want to work on getting that in New Jersey, but I have not been able to connect.
If I were you, I would go straight to Representative Santa Barbara, Angelo Santa Barbara, who is a parent, and the state rep from Schenectady area, who really is responsible for getting the assembly behind this bill. Also a parent to a non-speaker who spelled, no surprise. I would go right to him. And he gave a beautiful speech on the day it passed in the assembly. And he's doing a lot of work in New York State now, even with things like the police departments to be more supportive for people with autism. So I, as a parent, take heart that the advocacy I do for my own child now at this stage, and him being an open communicator with the letterboard, transitioning to typing, is only going to help everyone coming down the pipeline after him who needs to be seen and heard and acknowledged. And we're actually doing all his evaluations over now that he's an open communicator, because of course, individuals who are non-speaking are labeled as being cognitively disabled, intellectually disabled. And yet, is it that? Or is it that they've not been given a fluent mode of communication that they can use with their sensory needs to answer open-ended questions on a test? But instead of giving them that, people make statements for them and say, well, they can't do that. They can't understand that. And we're seeing a lot of evidence now that that's not really true. And so I was speaking with a man in my community who is a special ed teacher, and he is also a pioneer in surf therapy. And Montauk, New York, where I live, has a huge surf therapy community. And he was reminding me, he's like, Sara, I'm going to the surf therapy conference in Europe this month. And it wasn't that long ago that surf therapy was not evidence-based either, but now it is. He said, we were all doing it before it was evidence-based because we saw that it worked. So he said, just keep going, because things aren't evidence-based until they are. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, that's good. I want to get to the surfing, but let's just finish the school thing. So, all right. So it wasn't working. And so now you have him in a regular high school. So did you have to fight the schools? Did you have to get, attorneys, any of that kind of stuff? Or
I've done all the things. It started as a blessing in disguise. I was looking for another autism placement where we lived back in Huntington, New York at the time. Wasn't seeing anything that really resonated with me. Was sort of worried about the route forward. Spelling was on my radar. We hadn't started yet. And I looked for a provider near me, couldn't find one who had any availability. So I went and got certified myself. Around the same time, pandemic life happened. We ended up
Wait,
moving
hold on. So how did you learn about RPM?
from my functional medicine doctor.
Ah, okay.
He told me about it. I started poking around on the internet. There was not much
Right.
eight, 10 years ago. And I happened upon an in-person workshop with Soma Mukhopadhyay, the
Yeah.
creator.
Which I cannot pronounce her last name. I interviewed Soma, but I just call her
Yeah.
Soma because I'm like, I can't say her last
I've been
name.
to India 11 times, so
Okay.
I have a lot of practice. But
Okay.
but I happened upon a workshop with her. It was in the neighboring town, and there were no spots for Rocco to see her, but the public was invited to watch
Okay.
certain parts of it. So I walked in and I watched her work with a man in his 40s. And on the outside, he looked like what people say about autism. They don't understand. They're only capable of saying the same word over and over. That's all
Right.
that's happening in their mind. And I watched her talk to him about Elon Musk and the stock market and Tesla and the investments he wanted to make. And I just sat there with my mouth on the floor because watching him do it, granted, now I know he'd had a lot of practice, was so fluid and he was so accurate. And I was never the same after that. I thought, shame on me for judging this man who clearly has a really beautiful mind in there that I couldn't see because he didn't talk really. But when he got on the letterboard, then I could see. And it just opened the door for me of what else is possible here? And I was never the same after that. So that was my first exposure. I looked for a provider for years, couldn't find anyone who was available, but I sort of planted the seed in my mind as this is something that we need to do. Then the pandemic happened. We moved out to Montauk for what we thought was going to be, a week or two before life got back to normal. I'll say that loosely. We stayed there for probably 6 months and realized we're happier here. We're staying. So what I found here was the community was so inclusive, at the beach with surfing, just in the town. It was like a small town vibe. People were so welcoming to Rocco. And not that they weren't other places. People were always kind to him, but they didn't really bond with him, maybe because they were afraid. They didn't know what to talk to him about. They didn't have anything in common. But here, everyone surfs. So people would say, "Hey, Rocco, I saw your ride yesterday. That was amazing." Give him a high five, and he felt like he was part of a community. So we had a school out here that he attended. It was a neighboring school. His first time in a typical environment, he did very well. And then that school had some internal issues. They said, sorry, he can't come here anymore through no fault of his. And we ended up getting an attorney and pushing our local district where we live to create a program for him because in the Hamptons, there's low enrollment. So they didn't have any autism supports. And I was unwilling to put my child on a bus for 90 minutes each way, as was recommended to me. 90 minutes each way. And
Yeah, 3 hours out of the day. Yeah.
And if your kid throws up in school, you can't get there for 90 minutes. Like, no, absolutely not. So, and there were other reasons as well. By this point, we saw a typical environment and inclusion was better for him. He was really thriving. So we were not willing to consider a very intense ABA environment again. And that's no shade on the people who work in that environment. I heard nothing but great things about the people who were there. We have an attorney. We hired one then, and we pushed our local district to create a program for him here. And it took
No, wait, now was he spelling at this point?
No, not yet.
Okay.
He started a few months later.
But you didn't want the heavy ABA.
It just wasn't right for him.
Okay, but well, usually that starts when people start spelling. They're like, wait a minute, ABA is not where we want to be. We want to spell. So you were in this sort of interim space here.
I had a lot of evidence from the RDI, the relationship development intervention world, and doing that with him at home every day and working with a specialist multiple days,
Okay.
that he was curious.
I've never heard of that before, RDI.
A lot of people haven't, and it
Yeah.
infuriates me because it's so amazing. And it's one of those things that, you have Dr. Shealy and Dr. Gutstein, who created it, are such phenomenal people, phenomenal PhDs who looked at qualities that would make someone employable from a study in Canada, someone who has creative problem solving, good analytical skills, good interpersonal skills, the ability to handle hard things. And they said, you can apply these to people with autism and you can teach them these types of qualities. And so that's how they crafted their work. They've published books, studies, research papers. They're amazing humans. And I really saw that working with Anne Alfano, hat tip to Annie, she's still in our lives. And she was on Rocco's case at 8 when he was 2 years old, showing us, like building a connection with someone, building that trust is what's going to allow you to do anything with them. So it wasn't like she was saying, hey, do this puzzle with me, and then I'm going to give you a cookie. She would conduct herself in such a way that would make the puzzle and her seem so much fun that Rocco couldn't stay away. And then as the puzzle got easy, we would push him into harder things and things that were uncomfortable. She's the person who really emphasized, it's important that he learns how to wait for things. So we worked on that. It was important for him to hear the word no sometimes, especially when he had an AAC device, because people were so excited that he could say anything with an AAC. And we were like, whoa, you can't give this kid the iPad every time he asks for the iPad. It's okay for him to hear the word no. And we're not doing that right now because this is regular life. And she really helped me to push the edges around what was possible for him. And through working with her and working like that, we would even just do activities in the home, fun things that allowed me to see he really understood what we were doing. The cognitive delay, maybe I couldn't prove yet that he didn't have one or the cognitive issue, but I could see there was a fully formed person in there who wanted to connect with others, wanted to learn, wanted to grow as a person, would feel confident every time you pushed him and he did something that was uncomfortable. And I had years and years of doing this, tons of videos doing this. And so I knew enough to go to school and say, hey, you need to speak to this kid in an age-appropriate way. He needs age-appropriate work, talking about age-appropriate concepts. Maybe he's not spelling about them yet. And I want everyone listening to hear this. Before Rocco was able to spell, could tell his teachers he likes learning. Teach him about Martin Luther King on MLK Day. Maybe you're having him do an art project about that while you listen to an audiobook about it in the background. But stop with the kindergarten work because he's not in kindergarten. What's the worst that happens? He learns something, you're not testing him anyway. What's it going to do to hurt you if he learns something that's age appropriate versus something that is too young for him? I had done a lot of study in the RDI world. I'm actually partway through the certification myself. It's intense. There's 3 different parts to it. And they had research papers published on the harm in infantilizing autism. And they're really powerful to read and really alarming to read as well, because there's research that shows that the challenge autistic adults face is not actually the autism. It is that they have not been exposed in an age-appropriate fashion to anything, to education, to current events, to trades or options in life in many, many cases, because they've been infantilized. And so then is it any wonder that 30-year-olds are not thriving when they haven't been exposed to anything that could help them thrive? It intensifies the disability is what these papers said. So I really went to bat for that in the school setting. Like, I don't care what his classroom size is. I don't care if he's using an AAC to communicate, but I want him to be treated like a 6th grader. And that means you're going to go to gym class and you're going to go to music and you're going to do art projects and you're going to learn things. And yes, we have to adapt some things for you, but I really was not afraid to ask that he be respected in that environment. And I will say, once our district was pushed, they hired the best people. They put the best people on his case, people who loved him, they cared about him. They seemed excited to use their skills, actually. And he was the only kid his age who was non-speaking in the school. So everyone...
This was a regular public elementary school or middle school, whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
And everyone really came together as this.
Did they put him like in his own classroom, or they put... Okay.
His own classroom? It would have been an 811, but there were no other kids enrolled.
No.
So it became
Okay.
like 1, which was actually amazing. I think people had tried to warn me about living out in the Hamptons because there was nothing already established. I found that to be my biggest asset because when I asked people to look at how my child learned and showed them what worked for him, they were so open-minded to it because they didn't have to change a program for 200 kids. They just had to work with him. And so it was actually really, I think, much easier to get what you needed because it's like turning a canoe versus turning a cruise ship. You know, turning the canoe, you can do pretty fast. And so that was wonderful. And I can't emphasize enough that the right people make an enormous difference. People who believe in someone make an enormous difference, regardless of the modality that they're using. And I give a hat tip to everyone at Montauk Public School because they believed in my child and they renewed my faith in public education. Because after, you know, having to hire a lawyer, advocate, being pushed out of schools, you name it, like I was pretty salty. And just to put it mildly, I was pretty salty with and disillusioned with the public school system in general for
Had nothing to do with the salt water in Montauk, but
nothing at all. No, nothing at all. But it was a really pleasant surprise to be reminded that when you find the right people, you can do anything, regardless of what, you know, the admin team or the board of ed says. And we just took that philosophy into the high school. There was nothing for him there either. And now there is. And his teachers really care about him and Rocco now that he's an open speller.
Right.
We started spelling a few months after he ended up in.
That's what I was going to say. After you went to go see Soma,
Yeah.
then what? How did you start doing RPM with Rocco?
Oh God, that was a long time. So I first saw Soma probably 8 years ago. Started looking around for someone to work with my child, couldn't find anyone, but stayed on my radar. And then for some reason, I was still in the mindset 8 years ago that I shouldn't do this myself. I should find a provider. Couldn't find one. Pandemic happened, picked up, moved life out east, and let that settle. And then I started looking again, realized I was never going to find anyone out in the Hamptons in the off season, especially. So that's when I decided in end of 2021, I was like, I'm done looking. I'm going to do this myself. And in January of 22, I did my level 1 training, got my certification right after. I did my level 2 training last year. So that is where I'm at now. That was
What's the difference? What's a level 2?
It's just an expanded knowledge base. So you'll start learning more different types of students and how to work with them. Whereas level 1 is the basics to really get started, understanding sensory needs, understanding learning channels. And then level 2, you get a little more expansive with working through heavy OCDs, working with really intense stim loops, working with rote speech or scripted speech when people have verbal stims, how to work through that, how to work through all different types of intense situations. It was enormously valuable. And so now that we're starting to transition to typing, I'm leaning towards going back for level 3 because I know that will help Rocco to get open in that way as well. And interestingly enough, getting open on a keyboard, though we're new at it, I've seen people do it with their own kids and with providers. It starts a lot like the letterboard, and then you're sort of just transitioning into fewer prompts in the same fashion. So that's where we're at now. And it took Rocco probably 2 years, 2.5 years to be open-ended enough to form a sentence. So I would say after 6 months, I would get one-word answers that were open-ended. And very often they would be in the context of an academic lesson. Rocco was a superstar. Once I figured out his visual channel, that's where he was really sensitive, and the supports he needed for that, he really took off, and his accuracy is practically 100%. But it took him a long time to feel comfortable in the open-ended communication area. He was very strong academically. And then if you said, hey, how was your day? You know, you might get one word. He might look the other way and act disinterested. And I've realized since, knowing what I know now, that happens a lot with spellers, because if you're a non-speaker, you don't go through life being asked, hey, how was your day? What do you think? people don't ask for your opinion on current events. People don't ask how you felt about something because they assume you can't answer. So especially if you couple that type of anxiety with coming from a really heavy ABA environment or a robotic environment, period, you're going to look for the right answer because you get rewarded for the right answer in those types of environments. But with an open-ended question, there is no right answer.
Right.
So Rocco,
I never thought of that.
So Rocco and I did a lot of, I guess you'll call it training around. I would ask him an open-ended question and reassure him, you don't have to worry about getting it wrong, honey. There's no wrong answer.
Yeah.
Just let it come out. What's the first letter of the word you're thinking of? Like very slowly to let him realize, oh, this is okay. I can share this. I don't have to worry about getting it wrong. And interestingly enough, I link this a lot to when someone uses an AAC device. I don't know if you've seen this, but I see it a lot. Rocco would always say that he was happy if someone asked him how he felt, even if he wasn't happy. Even if
that's the right answer.
Correct. And when you're trained to use an AAC,
right,
you, of course, will get rewarded for giving an answer. And usually happy is one of the first feelings to go in the feelings tab. So if someone asks how you're feeling, you say happy, you get a reward. You're often trained that this is what you're supposed to say. And I'm not saying that anyone ever said to him, like, you're only supposed to say this. Probably not. But knowing how he absorbs information now, it's easy to see how he would absorb this pathway. And yet, if you put a letterboard in front of him, it can so easily say, now, Mom, I have a headache. I don't feel that well. Can I go lay in my room where it's dark? But if you handed him an AAC device in the same moment, would have said, I'm happy. So, and different things work for different people. We use the AAC still because sometimes it's very convenient. If you're out in public and you need a bathroom, it is the fastest way to say, I need a bathroom.
Yeah.
Right? Like not a bad.
Right. Instead of having to type out the whole word. Right.
Yeah. Right. Like, so it's not this way or that way. I think all of these things have a purpose, but when it comes to more complex thoughts and feelings, I've found that spelling has been priceless for us. Really.
How do you feel about the telepathy subject?
For me, it's like the world's biggest duh. Like, duh, of course. Like, of course. I've known this about my kid since he was little. Like, I've always been aware that he's been tuned in other ways. And it's also, I think, because it was so normal for me just to see my spiritual little being here and just fully accept all the facets of him, it wasn't a big thing. But I am excited that people are talking about it because I just don't think you can take a population that has been diminished for so long and then like, oh, let's diminish them in another way and tell them that now this is not real. First, your spelling wasn't real. Now this isn't real. And it's like, listen, I'm a typical adult. If I came to you and said, hey, Cindy, I am an intellectually sound human. I can communicate. And I also have some spiritual gifts. You'd be like, okay, I may or may not believe in them, but more power to you. But for some reason, when it's a non-speaker, they're not allowed to have that. It doesn't make sense to me why people have to get so caught up in their boxes. It's like, just let people be who they are. And if you vibe with that, great. And if you don't, who cares?
Well, it seems to be very partnered with the spelling almost because when the kids are spelling with their moms, the moms already, it's like they know what they're going to say. And it's like, wait, was that your thought or my thought? Who's thinking that, before you type it out, so do you feel connected to Rocco that way?
I do. And I've also, thankfully, been a yoga teacher for 20 plus years. So I know my work every single day, even before we were spelling, was, Sara, go take care of yourself, clear your mind, clear your emotions, manage your nervous system, and then parent. And so to me,
that's very good because that's a big key because a lot of parents are not regulated and they don't know how to clear their mind and then their kids can't spell. And that's why they don't want to spell with their mom. They can spell with a practitioner, but they can't speak with their parents because the parents are too excited. There's too much going on in their mind.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so when people ask me the telepathy question, I always answer, yes, I believe in it. And it makes no difference to me if you're telepathic, if your child's telepathic, or they're just feeling your energy. If your energy is a mess, that's going to impact them. I remember when I ran my own yoga program in Nassau County, New York, years ago, if someone opened the door and came into the room, they didn't have to say one word. I knew exactly where their energy was at by how they came into the room, their facial expressions, how they closed the door, how they put their mat down. You know, their whole energy showed me exactly where they were operating from. Of course, our highly sensitive kids who can't rely on verbal communication and therefore have stronger abilities in other ways, of course they're going to pick up on that energy, even if you say nothing, even if they do not read your thoughts. So who cares? You know, whether it's telepathy or parents just needing to clean their energy up, your kid's going to know.
Yeah. Do you have any stories about the telepathy with him?
I do. I like to use the term spiritual gifts with him. And I know in the research world, actually, we're leaning towards the term non-local communication because it encompasses telepathy, but also it's a term that can encompass other types of things like being a channel or a medium, for example, and other gifts. And Rocco is now, I mean, I can ask him a question telepathically and he can answer me on the letterboard. So I don't have to ask him the question out loud if we were talking about a sensitive subject and we didn't want anyone else to know.
You don't hear his thoughts back, though.
I have.
Okay.
And I do. And I do.
I mean, because some parents, it's the mother-son thing. They're
Correct.
so connected that they hear each other's thoughts, but sometimes it's just them.
I think for a long time, I was afraid of influencing him when we were spelling. So I really worked very hard, actually, to keep my mind clear and unattached to anything that he might say. And I really clearly let him know this is your time to express. You know, I am clear. I don't want to influence you. But nonetheless, I could start to pick up on his thoughts. When that would happen, I would just tell myself, Sara, just let it flow out. Maybe he says that, maybe he says something else, you know, but let it flow out and let it be something you're not attached to. And so I did that. But I do still find that very often I can feel what he's going to spell before he spells it. And I'm sort of just like, it's kind of like when you're watching the news, which I don't watch, but you're watching the news and a little ticker scrolls by on the bottom and you kind of just like notice it and then let it pass. It's a lot like that. Like I just notice it, I let it pass, and I make a point to intentionally tell myself and him, maybe it's that, and it's fine if you change your mind and want to say something else. I do find that when Rocco is telling me something from his thoughts, I'm more likely to pick up on that. If he's telling me something that he's receiving from somewhere or someone else, I don't pick up on it because it's not really his thought. It's a message.
Right. So what are his spiritual gifts?
Before he was even spelling, I knew he was doing some work in Dreamtime healing. It would be the type of situation that I would wake up in the morning and I turn my phone completely off every night and I would turn it on in the morning and I would get texts from multiple people on the same day saying, hey, I had a terrible day yesterday. I went to bed last night feeling really awful. In my dream, Rocco came to me and he talked to me and he healed me. And I woke up and I felt different and I felt better. On the same night from my non-spiritual friends and relatives. I'm like, this is weird. And then I would look at him like, dude, you were busy last night. Let me know if you need a nap later. Like, wow. I also noticed other things happening. Like last year, he was sick at school one day. So my husband went to pick him up. And on the drive home, Rocco went to grab the gear shift and tried to stop the car. And he's never done anything like that before. And Ben was like, what are you doing? You know, and as he was doing that, a car swerved out of their lane on the other side and came into their lane and hit them. But it hit them very lightly compared to what it would have been if Ben hadn't slowed down because Rocco was trying to put the car in park. So things like this, you know, have been happening his whole life.
So he anticipated the event before it happened.
Yeah. And little things like this we've picked up on. And I always, would notice them and sort of file them away in my brain, like, oh yeah, there it is again. But I wasn't necessarily seeking confirmation that it was true or not. I always just sort of had this intuitive sense that he was tapped into something else. The veil between him and the spiritual realm was thinner than it was for a typical person. Even the way he would, tune into animals. And we would always take a hike near this beautiful horse ranch. And we would come out at the end of the hike, and all the horses from wherever they were in the field would always run over to him. And they would always stick their nose over, and he would touch it. And they were so huge, it was almost intimidating for me to want to touch the animals, but he was so unbothered, like right away want to touch them. They'd want to be near him. And things like that would always just show me that there was something there happening with him that was special. And I didn't feel the need to name it or quantify it. I just wanted him to feel loved and accepted for all the parts of himself that he was showing.
Does he go to the hill?
He does. And when I first learned about the hill through the telepathy tapes, I asked him about it. He was, an open speller, but not as bold as he is now. And he said, yes, I go there. And I said, well, who do you talk to? Friends from the 3D world or spirits? And he said, both. I talk to friends and I talk to entities. He used the word entities. I said, okay, do you want to tell me what you talk about? He said, I will, but not yet. I said, okay. And that was last year. And now I get more and more from him about it. And we've also noticed that he and his friends from the hill are in cahoots. And they sort of let us, the parents, in on it when it's time.
Right.
Like over the summer, he has close friends, Gabe, Goddessman, and Nina Mian. And it was beginning of August, and I got a message from Nina's mom, Raquel. And she's like, oh, Nina really wants to come to Montauk. We're going to be there in 2 days. And we'd love to see you. Can she jump in the pool and this and that? And I was like, yeah, sure. What a surprise. I'd known Raquel, not closely for a few years. And I thought, how cool. The kids get to hang out. Within 5 minutes, I get a text from Gabe's mom, Nicole, who said, guess what? We're coming to Montauk. We're going to be there in 2 days. And we're going to be there the whole week too. And I was like, what is happening? And then we saw
who made this plan?
It wasn't us. I'll tell you that. As soon as we saw the three of them together, we all just laughed. We're like, oh yeah, they planned this and they let us know when it was time to handle the logistics for them, but they were in on it for quite some time. And the connection that they all had was really, really special. And even though that was only a couple of months ago, I feel like Rocco's communication around his spiritual gifts has really catapulted since then. Nina really owns her spiritual gifts. And I think being around her and seeing her feel really confident about who she is made him feel like he could do that more and more. So he's more open to sharing now than he was even a few months ago.
Right. I've heard that they're not allowed to really talk about some things that happen. Yeah, they're not allowed to share some certain things, but the planning that trip is pretty hysterical.
I was in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, as were many other people who I know who are crafting the Presumed Competence Fest, which will be a conference next year.
Yep.
And we were all laughing because we all arrived there on the Friday, and several of us were like, what are we actually doing here? Like, we knew we were intuitively supposed to be there, but we didn't really know the specifics. There was no real.
I heard Libby said it was supposed to be like 2 people that came, and it turned into this whole big thing. Yeah.
35 people later, we were all there exactly as we were supposed to be. And I said to Rocco, I said, do you want to come? And he chose not to because it's homecoming weekend at school. He's worked really hard to be there. Mr. Extrovert had things to attend. He wanted to go to the football game and the dance and all that stuff.
Wow.
He also knew he would be attending the football game, standing front and center behind the football team with his letterboard out for everyone to see. Oh. And that was not an accident either. He's not afraid to be the only one. And that's something I really admire about him. He's not afraid to blaze the trail. He's not afraid for people to look. He's not afraid, for people who don't understand to ask us questions. He doesn't feel self-conscious. And it's just a really beautiful quality that he has. Like he is not afraid to just go for it and put himself in the lion's den for everyone to see to make change for everyone else. But nonetheless, I had a little FOMO because I wanted him to come to Atlanta with me. And I knew other people were bringing their spellers along.
Well, I had it when I saw it. I was like, "Hey, well, how come I'm not there?"
Right? Like, I mean, I think next year is going to be like a huge party because we're all going to be so happy to have anyone who wants to come be
Yeah,
there.
because I've been just wanting to go to Atlanta just to go visit Katie and Libby anyway.
Totally.
So,
Just go, get on a plane and go. But I said to Rocco, I said, are you sure you're not going to be bummed skipping out on a weekend with your buddies? And he just spelled, I'm not worried. Gabe and Nina will be back in Montauk soon anyway. And I was like, oh, you're already planning this again, aren't you?
that's really
Yes.
funny.
So,
That is so
so
funny.
I'll probably see them next week or something,
Right.
even though we have nothing
Right.
planned.
Does he ever talk about, so you mentioned entities. Does he ever mention seeing angels or demons?
He does not mention it,
Or
but
he doesn't use those words? I'm just curious
those words.
because the kids that use that wording come from Christian homes.
Hmm,
That would be what their parents would call it, and that's what the kids call it.
gotcha.
And so I'm curious to talk to people of different faiths or no faith, whatever, wherever
Okay.
you are, just curious to see what the kids are seeing.
I was raised Catholic, my husband as well. I believe in Jesus and all of his teachings. I'm not a super dogmatic churchgoer, but I do believe that all those teachings are valid. And I'm also very open-minded spiritually. Like I said, student of yoga. I've been to India 11 times for spiritual studies. So I've been exposed to many different religions in the world, enough to know that they all sort of lead to the same place. And so I think anything that changes your vibration, like even hiking a trail in nature, can bring you closer to your divine connection. And I really have imparted that on my kids as well. So Rocco uses the term beings
Mhm.
when he speaks to a being or receives a message. He doesn't make the distinction between light and dark. He knows they exist, but I work with a spiritual teacher, a shaman, if you will, a real one. You won't find them on the internet. Who I've done a lot of work with the elements and with energy. And, so we've protected the house and we do a lot of work to cleanse and protect our own energy so that there's no space for dark beings or demons, as other spellers call them, in our home or in our energetic space. So he doesn't make a lot of distinction. And maybe that's because we have a lot of light beings around and we've been very intentional about that. And I really think that shows if you have a conversation with Rocco, he's always looking on the sunny side of life. And not to say hard things haven't happened to him or to any of us, they have. But he's so mature emotionally, the way he discusses hardship and challenge and the fact that there's growth there. It's very enlightened. And sometimes I look at him, I'm like, wow, most typical adults I know are nowhere near as mature as you are. And so I think that he doesn't spend a lot of time and energy focusing on dark spirits or entities or things like that, but he really just feels very supported on his journey.
I'm just curious because he mentioned it, at the Hill. He said that he also speaks to entities, but he doesn't want to talk about it right now. Right now. So I'm wondering what he's getting at,
He talks
one of
more.
those secret things that they're not allowed to talk about.
What I picked up on from him when he said that, and that he's slowly trickling out more and more
Mhm.
when he spells, is that he wasn't ready. And as he's been around more people who are like him,
Mhm.
he shares more
Right.
because I think he feels safe and ready.
Yeah. I know Houston's a big wig up there. It seems that they all know Houston, and he teaches a lot, and he sees himself as like the big brother
Yeah,
to a lot of them.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's beautiful. It's powerful.
Interesting. He knows Gabe. So I've been following Nicole with Gabe for
Yeah,
a few years because my son Robbie passed in 2017. So we're coming up on 8 years, and it
yeah,
was maybe a year after that somehow I saw Gabe online, and my jaw dropped, and I almost fell on the floor because he looks so much like my son Robbie when he was younger,
yeah.
and everything from the facial features to his body type to his fingers to his eyes. I just couldn't believe it.
Wow,
It was like I was seeing my son again.
wow.
I was like, I have to follow this boy, be this beautiful boy that looks like my beautiful son.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm happy now to meet one of Gabe's friends. And
Have
actually,
you
that's how I
ever-
found you because I saw that I saw Gabe went surfing.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I was like, wait, who's this family? And I watched Rocco Up, I guess, is that's what it's called on YouTube,
Yeah.
right? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the surfing.
Yeah.
So you mentioned it
So,
already. You said in Montauk everybody's a surfer. I mean, gosh,
right.
in the YouTube video, they're even going out in the winter with snow
Yeah.
on the ground. I was like, oh my God, it's so cold. I was
It's
like, yeah, but
normal
that would be
here.
my son loved the water too. I'm like, he would have gone in the water in the winter too.
Well, surfing in the winter with Rocco has taught me that wetsuits actually work. So if you have the right kind,
They better. Woo.
surprise, to go out there and actually be able to enjoy it in the winter. And in the winter, it's very quiet energetically. You know, there's no one hanging out on the beach. It's you and the ocean and the sunset and nature. And it's very, very calming energetically as well. So it's not whether to surf in your bikini, but it's very healing, I feel. So yeah, they do all that. And Ben, Rocco's dad, has always surfed and just saw no reason that Rocco couldn't do that with us as a family. And his journey to surfing looked quite different. You know, they did tandem surfing for quite a long time. And now he's doing a lot more by himself. And he's even starting to go surf with other people and do a lot more independently. And I think it's a lot like yoga in a way. It's good for Rocco because when you're out on the water, you have to be present. You can't be thinking about a billion other things and still effectively, you know, paddle through a wave or stand up on a wave. You have to just be there and be fully there. And so I think it is really powerful for the mind, for the energy, in addition to the body because of that. So interestingly enough, as Rocco really took to surfing, it inspired me to surf more. And my daughter surfs as well. And so the best moments are taking a wave together in the summer at sunset when it's warm. And, you know, you have the most beautiful view of the sunset from the ocean anyway. And it's just a special activity. And now there's quite a bit of science around what's called Blue Mind. There's a book called Blue Mind. Dr. Wallace Nichols, who we interviewed in the documentary, wrote this book and was a real pioneer around how the water has a healing effect on the body and mind, similar to states of meditation. And there's legitimate science behind this. And so his book is all about that. Like, even if you're standing near the water, listening to it, and you're not.
That's why I love the beach. I like to just, I don't go in. I sit there in my chair and read a book usually, but
Perfect.
there's something about the rhythm of the waves. It's like that, it's like the white noise. I got to sleep with my white noise. You know, it's like it's something very calming and relaxing, right? And our body's made up of what, 90% water, you know,
At least 70, maybe more.
something like that. And but also it's a very spiritual thing. People always say that there's something about this a divine connection being in the water.
Yeah. Have you ever surfed?
No, but here, let me show you something.
Yes.
Um, here, this is my children's book series.
Yes.
And when I get into the summer, here, look at this page. Look what's going on. You see what's going on in here?
Surfing penguins. I love it.
Yeah, it's all about penguins and they're
Yeah.
surfing. And it's a scene where I take Robbie to the beach and we always sit at the surfers beach because I don't really go in the water. We just sit in the chair and I love to watch surfers. I've always had this thing
Yeah.
about watching it. And I've seen the surfers healing before and I would have taken Robbie to a surfers healing event, but I never got the opportunity to. So I put it in the book instead.
Right.
But he always had that curly head of blonde hair and he just looked like a surfer to me and he
Yeah.
just loved the water.
Yeah.
So I always just imagine that Robbie, he's surfing in heaven and I'm like, dude, teach me how to do it when I get there.
Well, Cindy, I would love to extend the invitation that the next time Gabe is here, you come surfing with us. Gabe got on a surfboard this summer.
I know, I
Really
saw,
scared.
and that you don't know what that did because of the way I imagined Robbie doing it, and to see Gabe doing that, I'm gonna cry.
Cry, let it out.
But
I would love nothing
it
more.
it was such a beautiful thing for me to see.
So the next time they come out, we'll wait till the water's warm because you'll like it more.
Yeah, for sure.
I want you to come with us.
Mhm.
And It doesn't matter if you sit on the board. It doesn't matter if you just stand in the water next to the board. If Rocco can do it, you can do it.
Right. He's so
If
cute. He
can
does
do
his
it,
little
you can do
dance. He does his little dance up on the board.
Rock does his dance, his balance is so absurd. But even for
Mhm.
people like Gabe and Nina, for Nina, she came to surf with us this summer. It was her first time ever.
Mhm.
And, at first glance, you might think she doesn't like it because of the brain body disconnect and her
Yep.
motor control challenges and whatnot. And she came out of the water and spelled, "This was the best day of my life. And everyone here is so amazing. Thank you all for helping me do this. I want to master surfing now." She made
Yeah.
her dad take her to town and buy her own wetsuit and her own surfboard. So being a good dad, Mike did that. And so now she's ready to
Right.
embark on her life as a surfer. So, please come with us. We would love to have you with us. And it would be such a joy to celebrate that moment with you.
I'll have to get up the courage to do that.
Yeah.
Jaws scarred me for life.
You and everyone else. Trust, I hear that from more people, but I swear, like even if you just go up to your ankles in the water and just
Mhm.
be part of it, you'll
Yeah.
still feel the energy from the ocean.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is. I just have this thing for surfing. Like I always sit by the surfers beach. I always have to watch it. My son went to school up in Rhode Island, up in
Yeah.
Newport,
Yeah.
and I guess there was a storm coming or something, and there's always this at the Breakers
Yeah.
mansion, there's this spot where the surfers would always come, and I would sit there on the cliff walk and watch the surfers for hours.
All right.
You know?
So we're
So
gonna
tell
be
me about you filmed it though. What was the purpose and how was that done?
we filmed it. This was the age where Ben and Rocco were surfing every day in the summer, and Rocco was little. And, in the evening, he'd come back to our chairs and say, "Hey, this guy down the beach wants to make a movie out of
Ah,
us." And at some point, at the beach, the sun starts to go down. The adults get out their rosé. Maybe they're smoking a joint or something. And I was like, someone just had too much rosé. Nobody wants to make a movie of you, honey.
mhm.
And then one day, I was packing up our stuff. Ben and Rocco are coming back from surfing. This guy is with them and he shakes my hand. He says, "Hello, my name is Kevin McCann. I'm an executive producer of documentary films and I would love to make a movie about your son." And I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh, you weren't kidding." Kevin became our executive producer. He invested and produced in some other documentary films as well. And he's the brother of a man who's legally blind, who ended up going to Harvard Law School, graduating top of his class, has his own law firm in New Jersey, and has a really phenomenal life because he was never treated like he couldn't.
Hmm.
And so Kevin, growing up, was like, I had to take my brother out to play baseball in the yard.
Yeah.
And I was told by my parents, if he doesn't catch the ball, it's not his fault. You threw the ball wrong. You have to learn how to work with him. And he's like,
Yeah.
and I see exactly what you're doing with your son and treating him that way. So he introduced us to a director, John Madeir, a local photographer and director in Montauk. We had a conversation, and next thing you know, we were just filming. Ben got a GoPro, John got a drone. We were filming, and the filming went on for a while. And I'm glad because it was able to capture a lot of Rocco's transformation. We filmed during the pandemic as well. And this was before we even started spelling.
Really?
Yes. And it was so phenomenal.
Yeah.
And
And you had long hair.
yes.
Yeah,
I
so
have
I didn't recognize you like on Facebook after seeing that movie because your hair is completely different.
Yeah. I had long hair and Rock was little. And
Yeah.
I always say, if you watch the film, you'll see in the beginning when they're talking about what autism is, I say a line that it can impact cognitive ability. And I always wish I could go back and edit that line because I just didn't know then
Right.
about presume incompetence in the way that I do now in the
Sure.
spelling world. But it's also a good reminder that you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And you can always grow and change. And Rocco has said now we need a documentary about surfing and spelling. So that's
Yeah.
the next in the pipeline
Okay, good.
for sure.
Awesome. Tell me about your work with Autism Changemakers. What is that?
Autism Changemakers is a group for parents of non-speakers or people who are not conversational in their speaking, rote speech, scripted speech, limited verbal ability, etc. And it's a place where you come together as parents and you can talk about anything. There's a community component where you can ask for coaching at any time. You can share challenges at any time and no holds barred. No topic is off limits. And I felt that was important because I, as a parent, found amazing groups where you were only allowed to talk about RPM or you were only allowed to talk about gut health. And I thought, this is so silly. We're all dealing with everything every day. We should have a place where we don't have to filter ourselves. So we have that. And I also have a classroom tab where we have modules with really robust master classes in health, gut health, RPM, spelling at home. I'm in the middle of a letterboard challenge with my parents right now, getting them just in the habit of getting the letterboard out every day, even if it's for 5 minutes. So we have experts that come in. I have a homeopathy expert coming in a few weeks, and everything in between, advocacy, transitions, how the parent can communicate better with the child. That's from the RDI world. So it's a place where it's not a support group in the way that I think they used to be. People would come in and just share about their problems and everyone leave with no solutions. But
True, which is why I don't do it.
That's why nobody does it, because they don't work. There is no empowerment quality to them, and they're usually not facilitated by people who are coaches or therapists who are trained to empower people. So it's really a place where you can get support that actually works. And you can also find role models who can help you, because when Rocco was little, I was the type of parent who said, I will do anything to help my kid. Show me the way. Show me the families that are thriving, and I will go do what they're doing. And it was really shocking to me that I had to go to the ends of the earth to find any families who were thriving with the non-speaker in the house. And I wasn't finding them through the channels being offered to me, through my community, my district, ABA. That was really alarming. And so I thought, I need these other role models. I shouldn't have to work that hard to find them. I found them in the spelling community and the biomedical community. There should be a place where parents can just go in and say, I need help with this. And someone was like, oh yeah, been there, done that. I can help you. And so, yes, I coach in there, but we all help each other because we all have different life experience. And our kids are all thriving in different ways. So it's a really
Is this on Zoom?
It's a hub. It's on the app School. SKOOL. So I host it there until I create my own app, but it's a membership community and it's $29 a month, not expensive. And parents can go in there anytime to get help, get tools that really work. And I don't do a lot of live.
Go in there to what? To get like videos to watch for the different subjects?
There are videos, there are audios as well, if listening is more your jam compared to watching or reading. I have a private podcast that goes in there as well. So you get, for example, exactly what I say in my IEP meetings on a podcast episode for you. So really valuable stuff. And there's also the component where it functions like a Facebook wall. You can talk to people, you can ask a question, you can ask for help with something, and you can have real-time conversations. So I coach in there every day. And I do
every day. Wow.
I'm in there every day, not always on video because people are busy. Yeah. But in some way or another, I'm in there almost every day, and I think it's a really phenomenal place. I tested it before I launched it back in May, and the results people are getting are really powerful.
Oh, this is new. You just started it.
I just started it in May. Tested it last winter first for a few months to make sure it worked, and it does. So I do hold live.
This is great because people are always looking for help. And I tried, after I started my retreats, I tried to do like a monthly Zoom call, but it was just too much for me and too hard to get people to sign on. And I'm like, I can't do this. I don't have time for this.
Right. So I do have some live classes. For example, if I'm bringing in an expert and they would rather talk to an audience instead of record for a camera, then I'll say, we're putting it on live. Everything's recorded. If you can't watch it till later, no problem. It'll be in this tab in the classroom when you're ready to watch it.
Right.
But I bring in a lot of great experts to help with parent self-care, to help with mental health, to help with gut health, biomedical health for your child as well, all the things. So the library of content grows every week, and it's really a phenomenal resource. It's the resource that I wish I had when my kid was 2, but now it's here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, that's kind of why I do the retreats too, because there's certain things that I wish that I had. Like there was no support. When Robbie was in early intervention, the parents used to all get together in a room and hang out. And then when he started school, I'm like, so where's the parent group? And they're like, there is none. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's the end of that. There was and no internet back then, so there was no way to find out anything.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
it was
that's
a long
brutal.
time ago. So,
Yeah.
you know, and you end up being very isolated. That's another issue too.
What's really
So
fascinating is that's still an issue. And I think it's one of the most surprising issues that I find.
I
People,
just heard recently somebody say the exact same thing, that they still feel very isolated. So
yeah. How in 1 in 34 kids can families feel isolated still in 2025? But they do. And it goes for a lot of reasons. One is if you are someone who has success with your school district and you have to legally advocate, very often you're given a confidentiality clause. We'll give you what you want, but you have to sign off saying you won't tell anybody because we don't want other people coming to ask for what they want too. That's going to cost us too much money. So there are systemic issues that contribute to isolation. And then there's also the life of parenting someone with high support needs. Going out in public may not be that easy.
right.
You know, taking time for a Zoom call if your child has medical complexities and you have to be really vigilant with them, that can be hard. So I really wanted to create a group that made it easy for people. Pop in when you need to, watch things when you need to. They're here when you want, ask questions anytime, connect with people as you want. We're doing a lot of great things now to bring not only the parents together, but the spellers together socially on Zoom and in really beautiful ways. And I'm just very thankful that I get to do this work now. And I never take for granted that my child is thriving now because I know what it's like when your child's not thriving. And when my kid was little, I have 2 kids, and when they were little, a friend said to me, you know, you're only as happy as your least happy child.
True. Yeah, that's true.
And I was like, that is definitely true. And so I see a lot of families with really heavy hearts because their kids are not thriving and all they want is for their kids to be well and thrive and loved and seen for the intelligent, dynamic beings who they are. So I really love having a home where your child is celebrated. You don't have to prove their intelligence to us. You don't have to explain what your life is like. We already get it. We live it. Just come in here and be yourself and let's all elevate it together because a high tide raises all ships. So let's really raise the bottom, if you will, and make this a better situation for everybody.
Great. What do you see for Rocco's future?
Whatever
I
he
mean,
wants.
has he explained, like, has he said, like, hey, I want to go to college, or
He has
who
expressed that he
knows?
wants to get his high school diploma. That's
Hmm.
important to him. So that is something we're actively doing, both in school and supplementing at home. Um, and then beyond that, you know, I said, do you want to go to college? And he said, I want to have the option. I said, that's fine. So we're going to see in a couple of years where he's at with that. But it's just really amazing to know that he can if he wants to now.
Yep. What
Just
are his
amazing.
interests besides surfing? Like, is there anything in particular that he likes in school, any subjects like history or
He
who knows?
loves history, especially ancient history. I think because it taps into a lot of spiritual
Yep.
stories and cultures as well.
Yep.
And he really loves music, everything about music history, you know, studying of the music industry, listening to music. He really loves everything about that. So maybe we're going to have a visionary in the music business on our hands. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll
But
see.
definitely see it would be something creative.
Yeah, you know, I don't know if you experienced this with Robbie, but when kids are like 12 or 13, districts have a planning meeting to plan for the individual's future, you know, beyond high school. Because when you're someone with high support needs or disabilities, you're typically you were not in the past offered a diploma or college education or vocational training in a lot of settings. And so when Rocco was around 12 or 13, the district had this meeting with me. And the district chairperson, who was a really nice woman, said to me, you know, what do you think Rocco wants to do when he grows up? Like when he's 21? And I said, I want Rocco to tell me himself what he would like to do when he's 21.
Mm-hmm.
And she looked at me like I had 10 heads.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, I know, but what do you think he might like? And I was like, I don't need to answer for him. We're working on spelling. He was not open yet, but I knew he would be eventually. And I said, he will tell us what he wants to do. And, you know, it was like, well, we want to set up the right program at school. Should we set him up to work at the pizza shop? Should we set him up this? And I was just like, do you know any other 13-year-olds who have a good handle on what they want to do with their life? my college friends didn't even know what they wanted to do.
No, right.
Like, right? Like, why are we?
I was like, why? I don't think 17-year-olds that are planning to go to college and planning their major have any idea what they want.
Correct. And I know the intention is good, right? Like we want to make sure we're supporting someone and that might take time. And so I never questioned the intention behind it. But to me, it was also so silly. Like, my daughter's 14 now. She has no idea what she's going to be doing in 10 years. So I just kept answering, he will tell us himself. Yep. And that's the journey I'm invested in right now. And if that's not pleasing to you, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's still young. He's only 15. I was more curious about what his interests are and what he likes. And
he also likes numbers and math. Like he loves to play Sudoku. So I'm thinking if I had to say what his interests are showing me, he loves the depth of the music industry. He loves that music can convey emotion in a different way, even if you have no words.
Did you ever try to write music?
Not yet.
Yeah, because Tawny's son has been doing that, and they're using the Sonu app.
Okay.
It's called something like that. Yeah, so they're spelling out the words, and then you use the app, and you can choose the voice, the style of music, and it puts it all together like a song, and somebody sings your song.
Oh, he might love that.
It's like amazing. He would totally love that.
Every week I share about this music club he's part of, and so many people have written like, get this kid in a recording studio.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'll try. I don't know where one exists, but I will eventually.
Yes. I can see this app is going to put music writers out of business because what it's able to do with AI is unbelievable. But it was actually Ray. I interviewed Ray and her mom. She's the one that they've got this romance going, this long distance romance, the two spellers. And she wrote a love song. Yeah. Yeah. Very sweet.
Beautiful.
Okay. All right. I'm going to let you go. We've been on here for a long time. Last thing, let's just give your contact info. If people are interested in your support group, how do they reach you and find you?
All you do is go to autismchangemakers.com.
Okay.
Easy. Everything you need is there. And if you want to follow me on social media, you can follow me on Instagram, Sara.Intonato, Intonato. And I share a lot there regularly about what's happening in the group that might interest you. My new podcast is going to be rebranded in a week or two, and that'll be shared there. So that's a great place to follow as well.
Okay, terrific. All right, Sara, thank you for being here. Appreciate it very much.
My pleasure.
All right, bye-bye. That's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed listening and it helped you gain a new perspective. To learn more about our children's book series, Robbie's World and His Spectrum of Adventures, or to learn more about what we do at Robbie's World Foundation, simply visit our website at robbiesworldbook.com.
Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.